Yes. Whenever you want. Yeah, we're going to start right now. Open this up. This is okay, right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and start the meeting. Today is Monday, April 23rd. The Youth, Education, and Community Services City Council Committee. And if all would please rise and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready to begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. You may be seated. We can have roll call, please. Present.
David Benavides.
Present.
Sal Tinajero.
Absent today.
Okay.
Yes, he's not here. We got notice on him.
Yes.
Okay, very good. We will excuse. And do we have any public comments?
No comments.
No public comments. Okay, I think we'll be closing that. So now we'll go to item number 1, approval of the community services minutes for January 22nd. And that meeting, I looked it over. Anything, Councilmember Benavides?
No, ready to remove the item.
Okay, I'll second that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, so that passes. We're going to go to item number 2, which is the update on the security lights and security cameras for all the parks. We have a presentation?
Yes, very brief. We have a handout that is stapled 2 pages that has update on security lights and security cameras. And Ron's going to go through it real briefly. You see that it has dollar amounts, LED security lighting completed, and then, so I'll let him describe the handout.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of security lighting projects in the city of Santa Ana. That's really has been helpful to curtail some of the problems we were having in our park sites. We just completed 8 of them, as you can see here, with LED lights, which has tremendously improved the lighting level in our parks, close to $1 million worth of improvements. And we are now, with the City Council approval, recently we have added 10 more park sites to add security lighting, which almost $2 million worth of security lighting projects in 10 park sites. And these are all LED lights that we're installing. We're replacing the poles, the light fixtures, and in some cases conduits and wiring, but not in all cases. On the security cameras, we have completed 2 of them already. They're at Roosevelt and Madison. All the hardware and camera installation has been completed. At Madison, we're still waiting for the Code Blue unit to be installed. They anticipate making those signal connections by May 4th. Windsor is our next one on the list, and work is in progress. They estimate about 2 weeks after the antennas approved for the installation. Jerome, as you can see, we have a start date of May 14th and completion date in the end of June. At Santanita, start date of May 7th, completion date almost at the end of May. And then Memorial, start date May 14th, completion date at the beginning of June. And as Chapa, May 14th, completion at the end of May. All of these camera projects were funded in an amount of about close to over $1 million. If you have any questions?
Go ahead, Councilmember Benavides.
Thank you. For the LED lighting, are those? Will they have a set? Basically, will they be on 24 hours? Provide lighting? How is that? Are they?
When the lighting system first goes in, it'll stay on for 24 hours for about a week to kind of burn out the lights to make sure it's all operational. After that, then it'll be scheduled based on our park hours. So
It gets dark.
Yes.
When it gets dark.
Okay. Then a follow-up question on the. Well, one question on that one. It is part of the idea of the security lighting for it to be for the lights to provide light and visibility, especially in the dark, like night hours.
Correct, because the park stays open even past dusk for most of the parks.
Right.
And so it's just for adding security if people are walking, and also helps with the cameras, those parks that have cameras.
Right. So my question there is, if they're going to be going off, am I incorrect in understanding that they're going to be going off? When will the lights be actually on? I guess is my. Are the lights going to be turned off at dusk, or do they go?
No. So say a park closes at 11 p.m. So that means then in theory would be at dusk when it becomes dark all the way to 11 p.m. I would imagine that at a certain point they're programmed to go off so that they're not on throughout the whole night because the park is closed. There shouldn't be anyone there. Correct?
Correct.
And then the next day is just another cycle.
Okay. So, but it will be until later. What do we have a set time for the parks across the city? Is it
The hours?
The hours, right?
Most of the parks close at 11 o'clock. There are a few exceptions because of some challenges. Santiago Park, for years now, over 10 years, that closes at dusk because of some of the lewd conduct problems that we've had. We had an elaborate process with the community around Fisher Park. They wanted to close that earlier because some of the problems that we're facing. I think that park closes at 9. The seniors at Birch Park also had some issues, and that closes, I want to say, at 8 p.m. So, but for the most part, all parks close at 11 o'clock because of some of the recent challenges we had on the parks by the river. We ended up closing those, have posted hours, and they close, I don't recall, but they close earlier. Not at dusk, but I think around 8 or 9. And to help with the challenges that we were having with regards to some of the challenges we were having.
Okay, but in essence, it will be into later hours to
Yes.
allow for people to use them and benefit from the extra lighting. So that was one question. Then with regard to the cameras and the other next page, some of the cameras, would you know offhand the location? I imagine it's one camera that we're...
No, there's several
Okay.
cameras. Obviously Chepas Park is the smallest.
Right.
So I don't know off the top of my head, but does Chepa have just one or more than one? Hiram, more than one? More than one.
Oh, really? So each of these parks has... But the Code Blue unit, are we including one of those in each of the parks? Or is that just Madison?
Just on Madison.
Okay.
Corporal, do you know about the Cold Blue cameras?
Yes. So I'll touch briefly on the camera situation. Each park is going to be...
Corporal, could you talk into the mic because they're recording it?
Corporal, if you could state your name for the record, please.
Yes, Corporal Luis Barragan, San Ana Police Department. Thanks.
Yeah.
As far as the Code Blue camera and the cameras specifically associated to each park, it depends on the problem areas of the park and the size of the park. So, for instance, I can give you numbers on the first two parks. Madison Park's going to have a Code Blue camera, and that Code Blue camera is stationary, but it has 6 individual cameras within the Code Blue camera. In addition to the Code Blue, there's going to be an additional 10 independent cameras throughout the park. And again, these are, I don't have the map of these specific locations, but they're going to be targeting the parking lot, the bleachers, the restrooms, the picnic tables, the playground, etc. Whatever has been identified as the problem areas of the park. The Code Blue, I don't know if you guys are familiar how it works. Just like the cameras here downtown, they're going to have 2 functioning buttons, a 911 button that would be direct communication to our dispatch to report any type of crime activity. And there's going to be an information button that's going to go to Parks and Rec, and that would be more geared towards possibly a maintenance problem or the lights not being on or what have you. Park number 2, Windsor, just so you get an idea of the number of cameras, Windsor will have 1 code blue camera, which has the 6 stationary cameras, but Windsor Park is only outfitted with 6 independent cameras. And those cameras, again, are targeting the target areas, the parking lot, restrooms, picnic tables, playground, and the walkway between the park and the residential area.
So out of curiosity, would you happen to know on Jerome Park how many cameras that one?
No, I do not. I gathered the information on these first 2 parks. That's easy information to gain. I can have that as early as tomorrow. That's not a problem.
We can forward it to you, Jerome.
Okay, sure. Just thank you. That addressed my questions.
And clarification, they're all recorded?
Yes, so what we have with the capability of the cameras right now, we're retaining, as of currently, per the contract, we're retaining a year of video. Now, once we get going, that may lessen because of fees or what have you. But as of right now, we have the capability to play back up to a year. In addition, we have the capability of observing a live feed, 24/7 recording, and it also has the capability of remote monitoring through a smart device, what have you, and a PA capability, I may add. So the PA capability is on the code blue camera. If somebody's monitoring the activity and they see something that could maybe just go away with a verbal presence, we have the ability to get on the blue code camera, identify ourselves as the police department. Hey, you in the red hat or whatever, I see you, get out of here, or the police is coming, or what have you. So I think that'll be beneficial to at least alleviate some of the lesser type crimes.
Thank you, sir. Impressive. Impressive. One more question?
Quick question. I'm glad you addressed the PA capability, because that was a follow-up question that I did have. And just out of curiosity, would that be communications? Would that be dispatch that would have? How would that work? Who? It
would be the individual that's actually monitoring the activity. So, for instance, if it's me at my computer, I'm logged on, and I see it, I'm able to tap into the PA sensor and activate that. I am not aware if I'm able to do that via my smartphone, but I know on a desktop it's capable.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Anything else from staff? Okay, we're going to move on to item number 3, which is the updates for calls for police services.
And that's also Corporal Luis Barragan. Corporal. There's a handout, I believe, that you've passed out on that.
Go ahead, Corporal.
Yes, sir. So just a quick note here. We have 63 parks and recreational areas in the city. For this survey, we used the 45 parks with most activity. The statistical review was from the years 2015, 16, 17, and 2018 year to date. On this specific evaluation, I focused on either calls for service, whether they ended in a police report or not. So basically, an officer showed up, and I also indicated officer-initiated activity, which resulted in a citation, which resulted in a police report, but initiated by the police officer. As you can see, pages 2 and 3 have the numbers. The top 5 parks for overall calls for service, obviously, Santiago Park, Memorial Park, Centennial Park, Thornton Park, and El Salvador Park. And further, pages 3 and 4, as you see that I broke down the calls for service as call types, both for the calls for service and initiated activity. And when you look at those calls for service, when you combine them as a whole and you average them out, it's about a 50-50 split on calls for service from the citizens and initiated activity from proactive police officers. Now, one thing I do want to address, and all the numbers are there, and again, I only broke down the top 5 parks, but if you break down the remainder of the parks, it's still a pretty even 50-50 split. But one thing I do want to tell you guys, I used the specific address to each park. But what happened, some of the numbers were skewed, and I'm going to give you an example of what I mean. For instance, Birch Park. When you look up Birch Park on our program, it comes up as 210 North Birch. If you look at it on the geo map, it's not 210 North Birch. The problem there is if I geo-fence the actual park and gave it a 30-foot buffer, the numbers would increase dramatically. And they increase dramatically because all other calls for service come in, where I can differentiate if they're associated to the park or not. For instance, if there's a car stop at 300 North Birch, the officer's going to put down 300 North Birch. If it's a car stop, I don't know if it's associated. And so for sake of the numbers, I use the specific physical address of the park. I know there's a couple parks that I ran into that problem. Birch Park was one, El Salvador was the other, so I used the actual address associated to each park. And the other thing I want to advise you guys, I did not include any numbers for the bike trail, which constitutes a park. And the reason I did not do that, because it's practically impossible for me to identify calls for service or officer-initiated calls at the bike trail, because the address, for instance, I'll give you another example. Say the bike trail at 500 East Hobart. It's either 500 East Hobart or 1200 South Maple. If it's further south by Warner, it's 2300 South Maple. So if I pull up 2300 South Maple, it's going to give me burglary calls. It's going to give me everything that happens in that 100 block. So just keep in mind that the numbers are greater because, in theory, I did not include the entire bike trail.
Thank you. Councilmember Benavides, do you have any questions?
No questions at this time. Do appreciate the work. Well, I do actually have a follow-up. One is hopefully some of the camera system and all that we've just discussed, and the lighting will help address some of the needs and the issues with regard to calls for service. It might be somewhat related. No, it's not necessarily specifically that. Basically, I'm inquiring about. I have questions about the park ranger or patrol, program and where we are in status, because there is a nexus between that and the calls for service in the parks.
Yes. So the park ranger program right now. That's not working. The park ranger program right now, we're in full recruitment state. As I was explaining earlier, the problem we're having is getting qualified candidates. We recently reclassified the position to where we're not hiring academy graduates. We're actually going to put them through the academy. Again, our very first phase, we just completed our very first phase of testing. I believe 45 people took the written test. 39 people passed it. We invited 39 people to the PT testing and orals. And of the 35 people that passed, only 11 people showed up. Of those 11 people that showed up, 7 did not pass the physical testing. So it left us with 2 that did not pass the oral. So in that initial pool of 45, we were down to 2. We've had subsequent testing. We have some people in the queue. We actually have a couple people right now waiting, and it looks like we're going to be sending them to the Golden West Academy the Investigators Academy, and that next class is in July. So hopefully, come July, I know it's a 3-month academy, so we're looking at the end of the year we'll be somewhat staffed.
Well, right now, how are we covering the park patrols, and then can you remind me, is it going to be ultimately sworn peace officers that who will eventually be
Yes.
patrolling?
So yes, they'll be fully sworn while on duty. They'll be in full police uniform and a park ranger police car, hopefully assigned to. My ultimate goal is to have at least 4, to assign 1 to each specific district of the city. So that's where we're going. As far as coverage, right now I work Tuesday through Friday. My hours vary, and I have a part-timer, David Madrid, that works on the weekends. Other than that, I supplement coverage with overtime. Is basically what I'm doing. I try to adjust the overtime hours to the needs that the community has for park rangers. So, I mean, I have them all over the place. I have early morning shifts, I have late night shifts, I have Friday night shifts. So that's basically how we're getting through right now.
On average, how many officers patrolling our parks do we have throughout any given day or throughout the week?
We have at least 1 per day. Unfortunately, my budget for the overtime is not there, but I'm at least able to cover 7 days a week. Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, I'm usually able to assign 2 officers, and not at the same time, but overlapping, so there's more coverage.
Wow. All right. Fairly thin. Well, definitely appreciate your work in covering 63 parks throughout the city during any time that you're on. Appreciate it. Thank you.
If I may,
Go ahead.
I was going to add a couple of points, one on the cameras and one on the park rangers. While I think we look forward to, sponsoring these candidates to Golden West Academy and having more patrols for park ranger, the thing that I think is something that the community should be aware of, like we may have 1 park ranger, but the call for dispatch then connects with that park ranger, and if the situation calls because it's dangerous or whatever the case may be, then of course it's PD, and then they'll send additional folks. So while one is sort of the eyes and ears going around, and then of course the community or staff calls, something's going on, that park ranger may be sent when they're on duty to a particular site. But if the assessment calls for more backup, of course they will be there. That's the beauty of this system, I think. But eventually we'll have more staff. On the cameras, I wanted to mention, this is wonderful information. I'm glad Councilmember Villegas asked for it. You can see that the 6 parks, we have 7 parks that are going to have cameras if you add the new Roosevelt Walker, but the 6 parks that have been used, they have high numbers, and we're going to monitor in the first few 6 months, coordinate with the police department, because there are other communities that are saying, when is it our turn with regards to cameras? And of course, it takes a while to assemble monies, but it's always important to prioritize parks for cameras that merit based on the need and the safety concern. And as you can see, Santiago Park is way up there with calls. And Santiago Park is something that staff has already done a lot of legwork on. What will it take cost-wise to put cameras at Santiago Park? In addition, you have to do outreach with the community so that they understand, because sometimes people don't understand the purpose of cameras. But Santiago Park is a linear park, and there are much more cost issues because of the broadband connection needed and all that. So every park is very different. The alignment to being able to shoot laser, I think it is, isn't it, with regards to why you have antennas at Madison School, for example, the rooftop, in order to have the cameras work, that kind of a thing. While some parks lend themselves, might have a building that's tall. So there's all sorts of issues that have cost analysis, but I believe that this is going to be a great program, and that other parks will want, other parts of the community will want this camera, because again, it's part of that eyes and ears and communication, because it's a very busy city. So I do believe that you'll probably end up coming back to the city council on approving more cameras as we go on to additional parks.
Thank you, Gerardo Moed, for that. So the reason I asked for this information is because I know that the public is asking for good response time. And I remember from the Public Safety Committee, we're on the vice chair over there. I remember the chief talking about how many calls for service we have. We have on the average, about 431 calls a day. That breaks down to about 18 calls an hour. If you got one significant incident, then you just backed up those 18 calls because we have something going on. We know this is an active city. And so when I see these numbers over here, when it comes down to our parks, if you get these numbers taking place, it's really, really difficult when you have 1.5 persons focusing on the parks. And of course, I see in here we have a few homicides in there. We have a few, people that are just, found deceased at the park. And it's very active, so we need help. I know when I joined the council, it's been about 15 months now, and I joined this committee shortly after, and I remember Councilmember Solorio and myself asking for park rangers, and we still haven't received anything. And I understand there's a process, and I understand there's been a recruitment problem. So if we could please concentrate more, work with the personnel director, Steve Pham, who's new, and Chief Valentin, and our recruitment people to try to remedy this, because our residents need the service. And I know we're short on hiring regular police officers, but we really need some park rangers too. So, and I'm glad we got these numbers. Thank you so much, Corporal Barragan, for providing this good work here. A lot of numbers, a lot of information. I'm sure we can break it down further to one more. Councilmember Benavides, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Follow-up question with regard to the park ranger issue or question. I think at one point we discussed the potential of going to non-sworn rangers, and have we? Can you remind me of the what options and conclusions there, and have we?
Let me just provide you with some history. The program historically started with park rangers in the Parks Department that did not carry guns. This is Chief Davis time. This is a long time ago. And there was a big community discussion about should they or shouldn't. And Chief Davis, there's a lot of documents, I did a lot of history work. He was against park rangers carrying guns. And they were going to be in Parks and Rec. The director of Parks and Rec at the time, Alan Doby, was a police lieutenant reserve in Compton PD. And he thought there's not going to be a problem. I know about guns, etc. And it got political, and council ended up having a split vote and approved park rangers to have guns. They already existed without guns, and then they started carrying guns. And there were a lot of people that applied, but they really wanted to be police officers. You had a big turnaround, so you ended up not keeping them there. And then when I believe around the time that I went to Parks and Rec in 2002, there was a good full-time team of park rangers led by, no, this is before that. It was Ken Poole, and all of them went to the school police. All of them left because the school police started hiring, and they paid better. So we lost all our park rangers, and this is at the time that I became assistant director of Parks and Rec, and that's when we came up with the idea. We spoke to Chief Paul Walters of hiring retired Santanita police officers, and that Sergeant Randy Elridge and Richie Merg and Denny Rios, etc. And it worked great until the PERS changed the rules. You can't end up having annuitants more than just for 6 months on a temporary basis. You can't keep on going, etc. And so then, if you recall, it switched over to PD under Chief Rojas. And but throughout that whole time, the park rangers continued to carry guns since back in the day. I always felt uncomfortable because Parks and Rec management doesn't know anything about guns, and so I felt uncomfortable when in managing a team. That was one of the pro things that I felt comfortable in park ranger program going to PD because of the gun issue. With regards to whether future park rangers should be carrying guns or not, some cities have park rangers that don't carry guns, and some cities do. I'm just kind of letting you know. It could be a future policy issue, but I feel comfortable with park rangers under PD's management of them carrying guns because they're trained and they go through. And it is something that our park rangers, retired police officers, of course, they were all for having to have guns, and that was the issue. I don't know if that helps you, but that's sort of the history.
It's helpful to have the history and context, and I just look at it might be a policy conversation, Mr. Chairman, that we may want to have city manager at some point down the road. My thought is that it may not necessarily have to be either or, but perhaps I imagine that it would be less costly to have unarmed eyes out there, but also having some armed rangers, park rangers as well, where we would potentially be able to have a hybrid, given that it is a challenge to go through it and recruit and hire, those that will ultimately be sworn peace officers. Perhaps it'd be more expeditious to hire non-sworn and having, again, some folks out there that would be able to be have more people and a support to ultimately the peace officers. Just a idea, something for us to think about, talk about at some point down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Benavides. I'll make a quick comment here on that. I believe that if you send someone out to do police-type duties in the parks where the public expects someone to show up in uniform, they should be carrying a firearm because it's dangerous out there. I don't know if you'll get a lot of takers, people who are unarmed trying to do that kind of job. I remember Mr. Ken Poole way back in the day when he was park ranger, and I remember when they all left. I'm glad. I would like to see the park ranger program stay under the PD, under the management of the police department, and they would figure out what kind of training they're going to have their folks go through, and what powers of arrest or what kind of work they're going to be doing out in the parks. Because remember, they're the first responders out there to the public. You want someone who's confident and trained to show up for service, not someone who's looking around and then, hey, well, let me go call someone else, because that's just going to decrease the confidence, in my opinion, from the public on that program. And our residents deserve the best, and I believe that we can come up with some good programs. So I'm a fan of that. We need to have more conversation, I believe, with Chief Valentin. And that's it. We'll have to save that, I guess, for the Public Safety Committee. Yeah, with that conversation. Thank you, Corporal. Thank you, sir. And thank you, staff. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next item. Yes. That'll be item number 4, which is the park project.
Yes.
a park project update and the park bond.
Yes. So you have a presentation on the screen and also a handout. The park bond, which is Proposition 68, is scheduled to be voted by voters in California in the June 5th election. And it's a $4 billion park bond. 2/3 of the money is planned to be used in the state park system, all of the state parks. And then 1/3 is for the cities and the districts throughout the state. Next slide. There are different components in the park bond. I believe the governor and a lot of people in Sacramento are very confident that this is going to pass because the governor actually has tentatively put $1 billion of the $4 billion in this next budget. So some of the $1 billion will go for 2/3 of it will go for the state park system, and some of them for the city. This park bond, unlike other park bonds in the past, some have and some haven't, have a per capita program. What it means is that just by demographics alone, the city of Santa Ana will get a certain dollar amount. Probably the minimum I've heard and read for cities is $200,000, but probably we'll get more based on our needs. And that means that it will be like we have money and we decide how we're going to be using it for park bond. Most of the money for the city is going to be competitive, and they do have different programs.
So it'll be both.
It'll be both. Yes. And the competitive program is where most of the money that we will eventually get has the bigger dollar amount. The per capita will be nice, and it should probably be used for projects that we assess that won't be as competitive, right? It's harder. Like building a new restroom, usually it's very hard to get a grant for building a new restroom in a park, for example. So one of the components that's very important for us, because we happen to have a river, is that within a half mile of the big rivers in California and its tributaries, there's going to be special amount of money. In the Santa Ana Conservancy, the Santa Ana River, which crosses 3 counties, will have $16 million available. And of course, there's many cities that the river passes through. And the next slides are the projects that we've identified that are within the criteria, half a mile close to the river and its tributaries, meaning Santiago Creek is the only tributary that we really have for Santa Ana River. So the first one is the Centennial Lakes. And the Centennial Lakes need complete repair and reconstruction. And we currently have over $200,000 that's already been approved by the CIP budget by City Council, where we're going to get a consultant to do and break up how much it will be to really repair and do more environmental pumped type of system, more environmental clean water. As you can see, the lakes are a big part of Centennial Park, and that might be $2 to $3 million at least. And the park bond would be wonderful, and especially this particular program, because you can't get closer to the river than Centennial Park. The next project, so this is a wish list, so that you know. The next project is expanding Santanita Park. The Harbor Boulevard, when you're passing by Harbor Boulevard, and First Street is just north of that image, you'll see that there's a tire store within that yellow highlighted area, and you see Santanita, and Santanita is sort of hidden, and you can only access Santanita from Figueroa Street, which you can access from First Street, and you can see the parking lot there at the Santanita Park. And part of the challenge with Santanita and keeping it safe, it's very secluded. And the idea, and especially it would align itself with the harbor specific plan very well by adding a green entryway on harbor, very visible. So this would be, the park bond would allow us to acquire land. And that's a combination of a tire store and a place where they sell. It's all one property owner, but it's like 3 businesses, and they sell cars, the tire store, and then in the back, it just seems like they're storing vehicles there. and other things. I can't really tell from the aerial whether it's all vehicles. I think it's other things that they're storing. But that would be either depending on the money, we could acquire all of it or part of it and have an entryway in order to have 2 entryways for the park and exitways. And it would be an amazing thing for Santanita if we were able to do that. The next one is, this is, Councilmember Benito, you're very familiar with this. So this is the 5.5 acres that is education restricted land. You can tell that's the dirt area and then the concrete pad. The yellow scribbly line is what I am saying that we would, so that we coordinate with PD, continuing to use it as their training location. It would be an entryway, very environmentally designed riparian so that it fits with educational purposes. You have interpretive signage, and you would have the users of the Santa Ana River Bike Trail have an entryway to the lakes through this very nice eco-friendly trail. So it's not a big project, but it's an important environmental project that I think we would get a lot of points for water and a variety of different things. So it's from Medinger. Really, it's from.
But I mean, off of the river trail, there is no access.
There's really no access. You can't, if you're riding your bike or walking, you have to go to Edinger. And there is an access there. You can bike and all that, but it's our largest park, so it'd be nice to have 2 entryways.
Yeah, I agree.
The next one is a concept for joint use. And this is our Windsor Park and Jackson Elementary. And that little triangle is ideal for aquaponics and a farm bot type of raised bed garden. And those are very STEM-focused community garden types that the children from Andrew Jackson would be able to just walk without a field trip because it would be right there. So that would be a nice joint use project. The next project wish list is exactly what we did at Willard. This would be a synthetic field and park at Spurgeon Intermediate. It would be a wonderful thing. It would be an expensive project, but it's right next to the river, as you can see, and it would be a wonderful thing. I shared the concept with district staff, and they would love it because they love Willard. They love Willard, and this would be basically the same kind of concept. Then the following.
Okay, there are 2 red shaded areas there.
So one is would be the synthetic field with the rubberized track, and the other one would be like a little park.
It's improvement. Okay.
Yeah, like a little playground, and that place really needs a restroom because we've had lots of restroom issues when the soccer players come, and we do. The restrooms in the school are closed. So, and then we've used to get permission for porta potties. I don't believe we have porta potty permission anymore. So it becomes a problem.
What of this is city park? Is any of this, or is this all school? Like
well, we have a joint use. We already have an existing joint use with Spurgeon. So we program these fields after school.
Okay, but it's district land.
It's all district land. Okay. Yeah, it's all district land. So our lights, the lights that illuminate those fields, are all city built, and that's why we ended up having a joint use back in the day. Okay. The next one is the Santanita Synthetic Turf Project. We already got a $1 million project, but it's a $3 million project. So the park bond would be able to help us. We also have before you, when it comes before you, about $700,000 to $800,000 of fiscal year 18-19 CDBG money. This is the project that we're recommending because it would be a great project for Santanita, the new synthetic field. And we did get a $1 million grant, and we don't want to return that grant. We want to use that grant.
Yeah, they need a lot of help.
Yes. The other idea is also expanding the existing recreation center in Santanita. The engineers will assess if it's better to just demolish and build a new one, or just repair and then add more. That would be another project. Then the next slide, one of the things with park bonds, especially in the first year, they say we're going to fund those that are shovel ready. And so Centennial Lake renovation, because we're already doing a study on how much we will need, I think that would be an amazing shovel ready thing, because we would then have beautiful lakes, clean lakes, etc. The other is Sixth and Lacey. As you know, Sixth and Lacey is fully funded, but some of it is with park fee money and some of it is with CDBG money. But if the park bond is there and they will need a shovel ready, well, we use some park bond money and then we can reuse park fee money and CDBG money for other projects. So these are just a list of shovel ready projects. Santiago Park Gas House project is also, I think, over $2 million project that is getting close. Well, no, we already have an architect.
We have an architect.
So an architect is working on it. Of course, that's by definition going to be shovel ready. The Santa Ana Zoo exhibit is also shovel ready. We have an architect. That's a $2 million project. That's the giant river otter. And Santanita synthetic field project I just mentioned. So those are, if the state is looking for fast projects with park bond money, those are the lists that we would say these are ready to go.
Remind me the gas house projects at Santiago Park.
Sure. So if you enter, as you're going to the lawn bowling and you enter through Valencia and Edgewood, and on the right side is the lawn bowling clubhouse and fields, and then on the left side is this big dirt area that's kind of ugly, and it's the last ugly area in Santiago Park. And we've tried for years and years getting grants, and we were in there, and it's not a CDBG area, so we slowly saved park fee money throughout the years, and now, and the neighborhood is very excited, we're going to develop it more like the nature center in that area, very natural. And that the reason we call it gas house, there's a little 1930s little stone building where when back in the day they used to store gasoline there, and that's why we call it the gas house project area. Okay. And there's already been a preliminary designs shared with the neighborhood, and they're all excited. We're on our way, but that also could be for the park bond, because Santiago Creek is within that criteria. Then I won't go through everything unless you have any questions, but the next ones is just a list of projects that if we had park bond money for capital, these are what we would do. The one thing, like on land acquisition, you already talked about Santanita, but the other one is the church that is right next to Martin Elementary. If you were to assess the entire city on where are the spots that a child can't walk to a park within a half mile, that's the area. The church adjacent to Martin Elementary School. So if the monies were available, acquiring the church, developing it into a park, it's the church across Martin Elementary. It's underutilized. It's a Korean congregation. I'm just saying that if ever we want to say kids can now walk within half mile to a quarter mile to a park, whether it's a small park or a large park or a joint use facility, this is the last remaining spot that we have for the city. The new parks, as you're aware, is Raid and Myrtle and McFadden and Standard. Sixth and Lacey's not mentioned there because it's on its way. It's fully funded. The facility renovations is a list there. I won't go through unless you have any questions. The next one is new recreational additions. Again, the Santanita is mentioned. Memorial, you should know Memorial is where we have our largest swimming pool, and it's really an old swimming locker facility that it's falling down. I'm positive that the engineer says, well, if you have money to build a new rec center, you need to tear it down and build a new one. And Memorial is actually a high priority area for a new rec center, Memorial Park, and so forth. And there's a lot of field maintenance renovations. The following, our swimming pools are really, really old, improving, resurfacing our pools, more playground equipment upgrades. We have a lot of youth and families in our city. Security lighting, various parks. These are additional security lighting projects. The last pages, which is a description of our Townsend Public Affairs, who represents us in the state. They wanted while I mentioned there's $16 million for Santa Ana River, they wanted us to identify $9 million worth of projects so that they can start communicating, even though it's hard to believe we would get 9 out of the 16 for the entire river. But there are projects here, and I already mentioned them in passing, but it gives you a description narrative that Ron did a great job, $2 million, and it puts a whole dollar amount that add up to $9 million. That was sent to Townsend to communicate to our state representatives and so forth.
Apparently, if I could jump in here now, our local assembly member, Daley, was involved in this park bond, and more specifically with this provision along the river. So Townsend Public Affairs has put us in contact with him.
Excellent work.
Gerardo, I do have a quick question. Sixth and
sure.
Lacey, what's the status? You mentioned it's fully funded. So do we have then funds to complete at present to for Sixth and Lacey?
Yes, we do. And we actually, you may recall, we got going on that because we received a $500,000 grant. It's the same type of grant that we got for Memory Lane over there by the river.
Right.
And they are very time sensitive. You have to use it within 2 years. We've already finished a year. So we have by April 2019, we've already been coordinating with public works. We need to finish that project. And we finished all our outreach meetings. We're going to add the skate park element. And we recently had a meeting with the community on saying we're going to probably completely eliminate the community garden area. They were fine with that, and instead put the skate park element. And so now I think it's going to go out to bid for getting an architect.
Correct.
Yeah. And they're going to design it, and then once that's done, it goes out to bid for construction. And if you recall, we were really pushing to meet the deadline for Memory Lane.
Right.
Because we don't want to give back money.
Right.
So it's fully funded, but if the park bond comes in and we can use some money, then we do that.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, staff, for the excellent update on that. And we're going to move on to item number 5, which is the update on our youth services supervisor.
Yes. Cheryl, if you can come up, let me introduce Cheryl. There was a memo that was sent from Cheryl to me that was forwarded to all the mayor and council. We had, in fact, our first one-on-one meeting, Cheryl and I had with Councilmember Villegas this morning, and I believe it's already scheduled with you, Councilmember Benavides, this week or next week, something like that.
Next week.
Yeah.
Next Tuesday.
Yeah. And Cheryl, if you can start off with a little background, and then she has a PowerPoint presentation. Take it away.
Hello, I'm Cheryl Eberly. I'm the new Youth Services Supervisor. Prior to that, I've been at the library now for 17 years, so it's been a long time. I started first in the Santa Ana History Room. My background is I have a master's in history and religion in the U.S. And when I got the job at the History Room, the first goal was to digitize over 2,000 images. And we had to get a lot of youth volunteers to come in because they were comfortable with the technology. And in the Santa Ana History Room, as they were digitizing, we just started talking about the ambitions and their hopes. And most of them were first generation, didn't know how to navigate college, and they stayed past their volunteer hours and they continued to be dedicated. And from there, I got promoted to, not promoted actually, just given the task to take on youth volunteers. And from there, I started taking on young adult services. And, oh, thank you. Yeah, I took on young adult services, and one of the first things that I did, because I wasn't trained to work with teens, I was going to library school at the time, but it was more in archives and managing special collections. So I asked the youth, what do you want? And they said they wanted to learn things, and they wanted to do things for the community and get out there. So we started getting involved in a lot of community cleanups, and we participated in the multicultural fair. And, you know, the 5 groups of teens, they shared all their resources. They brought their video games in. They just shared. And that was the first generation. That generation is now 30, and they're all over the city and still giving back. That first generation laid the foundation of a really strong young adult program that was really civically engaged. And in 2007, a person who was a former library staff member passed away and left us the estate, Estella Schulze. And with that, because there was such a strong, engaged group of youth, they gave us the go-ahead to build a teen space in the basement. So the teen space came about, but funding has always been an issue. However, that just kind of motivated me and the youth to really look outside and look at grants and different resources. So from 2009, the teen space was built. We started actively looking for grants. I started actively looking for grants, and most of the grants had built-in youth internships. Because the most important things that youth need is work experience or the ability to, have a job that will support their college education or their post-secondary education. So from 2009 till about now, I've done over $2 million in grants that has funded over 500 youth jobs. A lot of these youth from that, have graduated college, have gone to other things, have stayed on, have come back. So the latest grant project that I've been working on is a Google grant to really kind of do the same thing, get youth thinking about technology and STEM education.
And you should know that one of the things that Cheryl brings to the table is amazing grant writing skills. So $2 million and having 500 youth paid jobs is amazing, and that's not with any general fund money. It's with these grant monies. And when I first started overseeing the library, you had just gotten a 3-year grant from the Laura Bush Foundation, from the library, from the federal government, and she continues to do that type of record and getting grants. We have the WIA grant, and we have IMLS grants, just a variety of different things. So I just wanted to highlight that's one of the special skills that she brings to the table.
Excellent work.
Yeah, and the core concept behind our grants has been the seeds to trees concept. And it's the idea that youth come in as a seed, and we as a community and everybody have, the great task of growing these seeds into these trees. And that started with recruiting the future bilingual librarians. That's the 3-year IMLS grant that we got. And that ended up kind of catapulting to the WIOA program, which is Seeds to Trees Digital Media Academy. And then 3 years back, we embarked on this crazy idea to work for the library to be the lead agency for Santa Ana to develop this program that's shared with Queens Public Library, West Hartford, Connecticut, and New Mexico to train youth to be community historians and community engagement. So I'm managing multi-state grant right now, and that's ending this year. And that kind of got us a lot of attention with, in terms of what we do. It's very innovative, it's very different, but the core is providing youth with mentorship, and not just abilities for them to have mentors from the top down, but for them to be mentors themselves, to have a responsibility to mentor others and give back to the community. And it's also the foundation for our youth civic engagement program. So I took all that and kind of formed this draft framework for youth in Santa Ana as a city. I'm calling it Seeds to Trees Santa Ana. Poor Hiram can't get my presentation up, but... Okay.
We have a hard copy, so we can
good.
Continue.
Yeah, I do. I can see. Yeah. And the goal is cultivating a sustainable community support landscape for the growth of nurtured, empowered, engaged, and resilient youth. And this is so our community landscape, how to grow that. And I always like to project into the future not where we are now, but where we can be in 10 years from now. Let's see. So I have phase 1, which is exploring the youth and youth stakeholder a landscape. So this is a landscape. I'm growing my seeds, so I'm exploring the landscape. And this is the meet and greet phase, where I want to see who the people are who are invested or interested in youth. And when I say youth, I include, from babies up and also transition age youth, 18 to 24. City council members, I've started meeting. I met with Councilmember Villegas. I'm going to be meeting with you to get your idea on what you see as youth needs are, not just for now, but for our future. Municipal agencies, Parks and Rec, different people in there with the police department also, because they are invested in youth and they have youth programs. Education sector, the district, charter, private, post-secondary education institutions. For the past 10 years now, I've been part of the table for the Santa Ana Higher Education, Santa Ana Success Group. And they've been doing some good work. County government, OC social services, probation services. I've also been as part of, the library is sort of a place where everybody feels comfortable and safe to come and get information. So we kind of end up, by just virtue of being a trusted institution, being able to know what the resources are out there and engaging youth in the resources. We also want to work with nonprofit community-based organizations, but also I want to talk to religious organizations, because there are a lot of religious organizations who are doing amazing youth programs that are very open. One of my youth civic engagement interns, her father is a pastor, so she kind of helps lead and find different organizations. And the private sector, there's a lot of interest amongst private companies to, grow and nurture youth who will work for those companies and support their education and also support their career prospects. I have given myself a targeted deliverable for phase 1, which is the Civic Atlas. It's currently already in development, building and planning. The Civic Atlas, how it came about was about 4 or maybe 5 years ago. I wrote a grant. It was a pitch for Knight Foundation, and they wanted an idea of how libraries could make government more accessible to the public. And I came up with the Civic Atlas, which is basically an idea that people are interested in what's going on in their backyard. So if they have a way to see what's happening in their backyard and be able to talk and find out, and engage. But what Civic Atlas can be used for is to map all the youth serving organizations in Santa Ana. Currently, I've had the youth civic engagement interns now for about 4 years. There's not much funding, but it's a work heavy sort of job. So they've each been assigned a ward, and they've been populating their ward maps. They haven't populated this yet with all the different types of youth organizations. Dallas here is a youth civic engagement intern. She's in charge of Ward 5, which is, I believe, Councilman Villegas. So she's got the youth organizations, the churches, the schools, the parks, also businesses that hire youth are on that database. They are now going into a second phase for the Civic Atlas, so they're updating it. So I'm hoping to start populating that data. That way, then parents, at anywhere they live, they can kind of look at this map, this app, and be able to find it. So then I go into phase 2, which is surveying the landscape and identifying the resources, assets, and challenges. And I've given myself 8 months for this, between August 2018 and March 2019. A kickoff for this will be our Santa Ana Youth Social Innovation Fair and Unconference. This is something that is part of a grant that I applied for the library. It's a social innovation grant that pays youth interns, but also trains them on the community issues of food insecurity, homelessness, community sustainability, and health. These youth interns will learn about social entrepreneurship, and they will learn how to look at grants that will fund their projects and pitch it to funders during the social innovation fair, so like a science fair. Food insecurity has been a really big issue in Santa Ana. As you know, about 90% of youth are on free and reduced meals, which means if they're not in school, they're not getting fed. In the meantime, on the flip side, with community sustainability, there's a lot of food waste. that's happening. So somewhere in there, there's a creative idea to match the two. And that's what the youth will be bringing in. And they'll also have a chance to pitch different ideas. And so we'll see what comes from there. And then this will be followed by a 6-month survey of youth services, and a series of youth organization roundtables in the fall, winter, and spring. And just to kind of know, what do they do? What are their charges? What are their costs? Extra information on that. And from this will be the core plan for the youth services plan that I'll be developing. And also this will form the foundation that will help me look at large-scale collaborative grant projects, because it's, with our city, it can't just be one agency. It can be something that's a large scale that brings in Department of, Labor, or a foundation, and education and technology to work together. But I need all the information first if I can do that. Some preliminary concepts that I've wanted to look at and that I've seen working is the circle of mentoring concept, which is what we've done at the library. And this is mentorship development. This is not just giving youth mentors and access to mentors, but having them have the expectation of being mentors themselves. So very service oriented. Resiliency programs across all school types for 5th grade age youth. The reason I picked 5th grade and want to have a program where we can follow them for 10 years, and there might be money for this, because at 10 years old is when you start seeing developmental issues, aggression issues, just emotional issues with youth. And at 4th grade, 5th grade is when you can see indicators of dropout rates, and also indicators of just future teen delinquency and that sort of thing. So target 5th graders, give a support system. Leadership development, civic engagement. A big point that I would like to try and do, and I think that will be, is the citywide apprenticeship program. That's 3 years long. Most programs right now is just a 1-year internship, and that's not enough to really cultivate learning. And apprenticeships have been around for thousands of years. It's how you grow as a person. And this is something that we can do with colleges, with local businesses, with the city to support to be really impactful. STEM and CS education, internship, community support pathways. For the next few days, I'll be at a STEM and Hispanics in Higher Education conference. It's not really a conference, it's more a round table, because what they have found that Hispanic serving institutions like UCI and Cal State Fullerton and SAC, but they focus more on that, they get additional funding to increase Latino graduation rates in STEM. But Latinos have been dropping out of STEM majors at 60% since it started. They're not getting any success. And they're trying to think about there's funding to how to increase educational success. And I believe that a big piece of that is the community piece, and keeping a youth engaged in their community while they're going to school and supporting them that way. So apprenticeships are big. Transition age youth, that is something that I believe that youth fall through the cracks. When you get through high school, you're good. You have a lot of support, and I've seen over the years youth do really well, and they get to college and then they drop out, and that's the 18 to 24 age. And I think if we can have this whole idea of the different mentors and different groups and apprenticeships working with that age, it'll be really good. Other concepts that come to light during the process would be foster youth. Santa Ana, there's about, on average, 9,000 youth that get reported for child abuse in Santa Ana. It comes up to about 11.9% of the youth population in Santa Ana. That is 19% of the total reported child abuse in Orange County. Now, the biggest case of this is 65% of it is of neglect. Basically, what's happening is parents are working, they're not available, their children are left in the care of minor siblings, and that comes up to neglect. So if parents have an idea of the different programs that are out there and support systems for them and access to it, these rates would go down. Also, what they found amongst the foster care system is Latino youth have a lower family reunification rate because the families don't get involved, or they're nervous about participating with the law. Also, they don't get advocates, community advocates, like they have court-appointed social advocates. Latino males are a big need to be advocates for youth. They don't get access to that. So that's something that community, I think we can work towards, because foster youth go high rates of homelessness and high rates of incarceration. So, undocumented youth is something that youth is very, very concerned about, and programs and support. Probation incarcerated youth is another area of concern. But like I said, the foster and the probation incarcerated tend to go together. Young women, programs for young women, and especially young women to get into STEM sort of majors. It's important. Youth with disabilities and mental health wellness. And their youth have a lot of anxiety issues. Oh, I got to wrap it up. Okay, I'll go quicker. So then after that is the mapping the terrain, which, after I go through all that, and what I want to create from this is a Santa Ana Youth Activities and Support Marketplace. So it's a web portal that can use current digital tools, youth internship, and the job website, so that at any given time, if you're a parent or a kid and you want to know what is there for me to do at 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, everything comes up in the city that you can do. So that, will be access. And then phase 4 is cultivating the landscape for the 10-year Santa Ana Youth Master Plan. We need to update the one that was done in 2009. Lots of changes have happened, needs are different. And I'll go to the next one, which is in 2020 to have a 10-year Santa Ana Youth Master Plan towards a sustainable youth support landscape. And that will take us 10 years into the future.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Benavides, you have some questions?
No questions. I'm just very much looking forward to our time next week, and I'm very impressed. So I'm looking forward to appreciate your vision, and just the looking towards looking ahead, looking towards the future. The fact that this even your last slide, 10-year master plan. I oftentimes describe the city of Santa Ana as a city of promise. When we're a very dense city, and we're a very young city, and that to me represents a concentration of tremendous potential, tremendous opportunity, and our youth hold that. The future of the region, of the county, lies here in Santa Ana, and investing in our youth is critical. And I see that you have a vision toward that, and I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, Cheryl, for your effort, and thank you, Gerardo, for following through on this what council brought before last years. We're looking at budget, and I appreciate your work, your team, and look forward to what's next.
Thank you, Councilmember Benavides. Thank you, Ms. Cheryl, for a great presentation, and thank you for your 17 years here with the city. And, I see great things coming with your leadership in this position. I know we had a great meeting this morning with yourself and Mr. Gerardo Moet, the director. Had a great meeting, learned a lot, went over some information that you had, went over some information that I had. It was very disturbing that 60% of the Latino kids don't finish up when they started from the beginning of that. And I know we spoke about paid internships, trying to bring some more. I'm going to reach out to the Santa Ana Chamber to see how we can work something out. Hopefully they can help. I was one of those kids that couldn't get involved in a lot of things because I had to go work. I was working since age 10. Either selling oranges or cutting lawns or helping my dad in his gardening business, and didn't really. I know how to work. I don't know how to go and play sports and all that stuff. Couldn't afford it. Couldn't afford the Boy Scouts. That's my upbringing, And I would like to see, a good work ethic is very important. And so, I am thankful for that. One of the things that we always talk about here in this city is that this is a very young city. We always concentrate on the youth. I hear it all the time. One of the things that I'm always concerned about is our seniors. And we spoke about that also. In the future, Mr. City Manager, we would like to get an equivalent position here, like a senior services supervisor. I don't know how we're going to make that happen, but I'd like to see that happen because we cannot forget our senior citizens. My father would say, he had a saying, we start off as children and we end up like children. And that's just what happens. You need help when you're very young, and you're going to need help when you're very old. So, that's one of the things that I would like to look forward to. I have made public very much my project that I want to bring the Family Justice Center here to Santa Ana, just like the one that is in Anaheim, where they streamline services for domestic violence and victims and child abuse victims. And also included in there is people who suffer from elder abuse, our seniors that need that help. We have that problem here, and I know we always talk about how young it is here, but I never hear anyone talk about our senior citizens. So I'm going to advocate for them, and I want to bring, if there's anything I do while I'm here, is to bring this center here to help out. We can't expect our children to go to school and they live in a home where there's violence. You can't expect them to concentrate because, what we're actually talking about is trauma. So that is one thing I wanted to make note here at this meeting for the record. And I thank you again, Ms. Cheryl, and thank you, staff, for the time. We are going to move to item number 6, and that's the update on the partnership efforts with the Santa Ana Unified School District.
Yes. We have it up there. You also have a handout. I'm going to give a brief intro, and then staff, I'm encouraging them to be very brief and concise. But my intro is to give you background and remind you on why this is on the agenda. At the Santa Ana Unified School District City Council Committee that took place on January the 29th, in this very room, the school district, if you recall, asked for a comprehensive report on partnership efforts, primarily with regards to this agency, the use of facilities, the joint use, and a variety of different those things. So we drafted, this is still in draft form, and we did send it to the superintendent staff, and we recently just, late last week, we got pretty much concurrence. They're still doing some wordsmithing. It's important for when we do go back to the next joint council committee meeting that has been tentatively scheduled. I think your executive assistants are trying to put it on your calendar for May the 21st. It was supposed to be April the 30th, but the school district ended up canceling. That date didn't work for them, so it was going to be a week from today. And so now they're suggesting May 21st, and I think the executive assistants are checking your calendars. But whenever that date is, this is going to be on the agenda, this draft report. And I wanted to let you know that it's important, I think, so that we don't end up saying that's not true and all that we get school district staff concurrence on the information. And that's exactly what we've done and we're working on. And I'm going to have Ron do the first part, very briefly, Ron, and then Jeannie's going to wrap up.
Hi. The city has really invested a lot in our joint use program with the Santa Ana Unified School District. In the last 5 years, we've done 3 major projects, all through either grants that were acquired from the state or from CDBG funding. One was the Garfield Community Center, which we built a community center on school property. Willard Intermediate School, same situation. We built a synthetic turf field and a park that's available during school hours. The park is available during school hours. The field is available after school and weekends on district property. And the last one, which we are doing now, is the Roosevelt Walker Community Center at Roosevelt School. all of which, as I indicated earlier, were either done by grants or CDBG funding, and we've indicated some of them, we had some A&D monies, park A&D monies put into the project. These projects were all managed by the school district since they were on school property. I had to go to the Department of Education. These three projects will total 8 joint use sites that we have with the district. And below is a summary of the 8 sites. One is the Spurgeon Intermediate Park and Ball Field, the Monte Vista Basketball Courts, Monroe Multipurpose Field, Madison Community Garden and Basketball Court, the Godinez Athletic Field and Basketball Courts, Gymnasium, Performing Arts, the Garfield Community Center, the Willard Synthetic Turf Field, and the Roosevelt Walker Community Center. They were all done under a major joint use agreement with the school district.
I think that's it,
Yeah.
Ron, right? And then we're going to have a link on the report where we're going to put all the actual 8 joint use agreements so that the public and everyone can see the actual agreements. These are just summaries. Now Jeannie's going to wrap up the rest of the report. Jeannie?
So now with this section, district use of city facilities that are not part of joint use agreements. For example, Centennial Park / Dan Young Soccer Complex. The Godinez Boys and Girls Soccer uses fields 2 and 4. Godinez Girls Softball uses fields 5 and 6, Monday through Friday in afternoons. Godinez Football uses fields number 2. And the P classes uses fields 5 and 6, which is on our property. Thus, they're renting these facilities. Santa Ana Stadium, they also use, for example, for graduations and for football games as well. Lily King is also used for their PE classes. El Salvador Park is used as well. Now, with the district use of the Godinez facilities...
One moment. Jeannie, the point, I don't believe you had a chance to mention
yes,
the beginning.
I skipped it.
So these are the facilities that are city-owned. They're not joint use facilities, but the school district uses. And we charge them miscellaneous fee. And at the stadium, we do not treat high schools, whether they're private or public, differently. So that was one, if you recall, we were saying that we treated them differently. So we go by the miscellaneous fee, on which is the fees that we charge anybody. These are not joint use facilities. This is just strictly city facilities because they need to use them.
And one item that I know is brought up before the policy joint use is if they're able to sell food items, they are, and it's here. I don't want to read everything.
Sure.
But it's
I
here.
appreciate you breezing through it. But real quick, though, under the Santana Stadium,
Yes.
third paragraph, the boys soccer program currently rents Santana Stadium Monday through Friday. Is that from a specific school? Boys soccer?
Santa Ana High.
Santa High School.
Santana High. Okay.
Yeah, we should probably do a wordsmithing there and add.
Okay.
Yeah, just if you can just add that in there. And then the question on the El Salvador Park.
Yes.
That bullet indicates that Fremont Elementary would like to use the park for
Yes.
recess. But am I understanding right, however, that the school site itself would like to, but the district does not allow? Is that what I'm understanding?
I think in the past, Jeannie, you can mention that they've been wanting to it, but they have been hesitant because there's no fence, and it's an elementary school. And so I believe recently they've sort of starting to explore again to want to use it.
Yes.
So that's why we put it there, because we don't have a problem with them doing it, but it's their decision.
Would there be any fee?
There would be a fee, but this is the type of thing that under Parks and Rec co-sponsorship we're going to talk about that I would support co-sponsorship. So there really wouldn't be, just like Lily King, I don't believe there is any fee because we co-sponsor. Lily King is used by MacArthur School, and Fremont wants to use El Salvador. When they have to apply, and then we give them a fee, and then they ask for co-sponsorship, and then we provide something like this would be co-sponsored.
Okay. On the Godinez, I know you were getting the Brahma. Jump ahead here real quick, Jeannie.
Yeah.
So you referenced the different use of the basketball gym, the amphitheater, and it's listed as a facilities rented. However, the last bullet indicates that the joint facility use is provided free to Santana Unified.
Yes.
Yes.
So they rent, but then we waive it? Is that my
So
understanding?
here's the thing that got confused at the last time. Part of it is that my understanding there's a new high school principal at Godinez, and there was a learning curve issue. And the issue is that when Godinez High School wants to use city non-joint use, we charge them the miscellaneous fee. That was the first part, like Field 5 and 6 in Daniel. But when they want to use during joint use time, the joint use gym or the Performing Arts Center or the football field or the 2 ball diamonds, they have priority use and they use it for free. And that's what they were implying that it wasn't, that they were paying. And I would say no. And I think they were getting confused when they used the 5 and 6, the park facilities for their PE class. That they pay nominal fee, the miscellaneous fee, but for the joint use, we give them priority. You know, if they want to use it, they use it. And when a third party is available for a third party user, let's say someone wants to use the Performing Arts Center for a dance recital for some nonprofit organization, we collect that fee and we provide it to the school because it's a school district fee. So it's not even a city fee, but we administer it. So it's important to know that we do not charge the school district for the use of joint use facilities. So that's very clear. And already we got feedback from the staff. They did not correct that. They know that that's the case.
So I'm still a bit confused then. So which fields or when is there a fee that is collected? You mentioned the miscellaneous fees.
Yeah. So the when you go back to the following couple of pages, when you say district use of city facilities that are not part of joint use agreement, see in that page?
So,
that those at Centennial Park, okay, that would be the fields within Dan Young Soccer Complex.
Okay.
Those are not joint use.
Okay, I see.
And then fields that are fairly close to the high school but are not joint use, and that's field 5 and 6. Okay. That's where we do the 4th of July event, the field 5 and 6.
Okay.
So the football field with the track and the 2 ball diamonds, those are joint use facilities. So when they use it after school, the school district, we don't charge them. When they use the big gym, which is a joint use, we don't charge them. When they use the Performing Arts Center, we don't charge them. Those are joint use facilities. When they don't use it in the community uses, we assess a fee, but it's a school district fee, and we provide that to them, to the school district. We don't keep that money. And that's per the joint use agreement.
And we're not hearing that from that side.
No.
Right.
That's why I'm thinking, we're going to draft this comprehensive report, and we're going to get their staff to bless it before we bring it to the committee, so that we're not, so that we can introduce it and saying your staff has reviewed it and they agree with all of this.
And just for further clarification, it's not here, but per the joint use agreement for Godinez in the city, we are able to use it from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's public times. It's our time. And then in the weekends, all day.
Okay.
And in the summer as well. That extends hours earlier.
Okay.
Okay, so we already went through the next section, but the following is the times that the city possibly uses their facilities. We as Parks and Rec never use any of their non-joint use sites, but the city does use, or they host neighborhood meetings, once a month, and that's through the planning and building department, through neighborhood improvement. So they do use like the multi-purpose rooms for 2 hours a month for the different areas in the city. Now, Intramural Sports. I don't know if you're aware, but for the past several years, since 2008, the city of Santa Ana, through Parks and Recreation, we actually contribute about $8,000 to the school district to program their intramural sports. We have about 12 part-time staff on site that help them out as well, and 2 full-time staff that help with the coordination.
Is that in addition to the 8,000?
No, that is
staff?
8,000. That's the 8,000.
So the
That's for the
staff
part-time.
time, the staff time is what's that?
And then also,
that's good.
there's some monies that are used for the trophies,
Yes.
the awards. We pay for that, the city pays.
We pay for
These
all
are intermediate high schools that compete with each within the schools. It's been going on for several years.
Okay.
And now with special events, the Santa Fe Youth School District hosts many special events at our facilities like Plaza Calle 4, Centennial Park, etc. From the time span of March 2017 through March 2018, the City of Santa Ana, through Parks and Recreation, we co-sponsored 97% of all asks. Thus, we co-sponsored a total of $14,244.37, which was a savings to them. When we're able to co-sponsor, we do. In the next page, you'll see this chart. And just two examples, 4/28/2017, that's the MacArthur History Fair, what happens every year, which is Lily King Park. They use it for their history fair. And
The bottom line is if you add the 14 to the 8 and then you have this 22, we co-sponsor. Normally, they would pay that fee. So not only do we not charge them for the use of the joint use facilities, which they had said that we were, we also provide a lot of pro bono stuff because it's good things. It fits within our co-sponsorship policy. And I figured since they asked for a comprehensive report, they didn't ask for a comprehensive report on co-sponsors, but I figured that we should add it there so that we can see what they pay us and what we pay them. And that's, they have been providing free access to the neighborhood meetings.
Yes.
I don't know if that's always going to be the case because I keep on hearing that maybe they'll start charging or something. I don't know. But I think it's important for the committee to know, and this is pretty factual.
I definitely believe that they should be informed of all this.
The only
They
thing
can see
that's,
it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, yes.
The only thing
Right.
excluded on this is the high school graduations. That's the only thing that was excluded from the previous years. But the 5K wellness that they had recently on 224, they would have had to pay $1,200 and some change, but we co-sponsored. That's the second to the last item.
And so we believe we're still going to get some word changes here, a few things and all that, but it will be final by the time it goes to the Joint Policy Committee, whether it's May 21st or whatever the date is. And and then the last thing I think, Jeannie, you were talking about, that we have been ongoing for years talking about, since we have 8 separate joint use agreements, we should have one master joint use agreement. So all 8 are encompassed so that it's better coordination and communication so that when you have a new principal, you don't have this learning curve and this kind of accusation, hey, kind of a thing. And there's more clarity because some of these joint use agreements are really old. So it would be nice to have an upgraded master joint use. And it
will simplify the terms and the hours. For example, last night, just for my own clarification, I read all these joint use agreements. And so what I always remember, and staff remembers, is 6 p.m. to 10 is our time. But there's some in here, like the elementary ones, it differs. Monte Vista's different from Garfield. Some of them start at 4 p.m. Some may start at 3. So then that would help us later to have a set time schedule.
So we need to update also.
Yeah, and that'll be part of the master joint use agreement that I've always felt it's a great idea. But for whatever reason, sometimes it was stalled. It's just going to improve, I think, partnership and communication.
I also say we add that to the agenda then.
Yes. As a separate item, master joint use agreement? Okay.
One additional question I have is my understanding is that there have been times where historically the city has provided land to the district. Do we have any documentation on anything like that? I know Ranch Santiago, for example, Digital Media Center over on Bristol, that was something we provided.
Yeah,
and that on the college
because
side.
I've been here a while, and it really wasn't part of Parks and Rec, but I think we would need to do more research. For example, I don't know if it's urban legend, but what I understand back in the day, and I think it had to do with redevelopment under Dave Ream, that the current school district administration site, Chestnut, is, I believe, it was, as you know, it wasn't built for a school district administration. It was some kind of industrial, whatever it was. And I believe it was basically from the city to the school district as a gift. Now, that needs to be confirmed, but it was sort of like in lieu of payment of redevelopment monies and stuff like that, but it was definitely that kind of a thing. I may not have all the history because it isn't a Park and Rec thing. It was more of a redevelopment back in the day. But as I understand it, because their district administration used to be at Davis Elementary. So the headquarters for the superintendent and the school board meetings used to be at Davis Elementary, right here where we have the water tank.
The water towers. Right.
And that's where it used to be in 90, 91. And in the early 90s, by 95, 96, they had shifted over to Chestnut under Superintendent Rudy Castruita. Okay. And I believe they did not pay for that land. I believe the city provided. And there might be other land stories, but I don't know if it's public work or someone that has more of the redevelopment history. if that's something that we need to unearth.
And that's what I was, I remember actually having meetings and some conversations with Dave Ream, and I remember him specifically. He had this list. That was one of the locations. I think even the land at Via Intermediate. I think there was some type of
maybe some land, because Via's been there for a while. So I don't know.
I think it may have been right around that time when the district offices and so he shot off to me. I remember a list of different, and I remember him mentioning wanting to do some type of like a historical, kind of capturing. I think of Cheryl mentioned the history room, but having some type of almost even oral history of talking about all of these. Because I remember there from what he had shared. I think something to the effect of back when we picked up the Education First motto, that there was some type of partnership between the school district and the city, and I think it was it was a partnership between the school district, Santa Ana College, and the city, and it was Mayor Dan Young, and it was called Vision 2000, and that's when the logo Education First came in. And that's around the time that was part of the reason we had the Futures Scholarship also, which is grown to be a large endowment that city employees pay into. And that's how it started, city employees paying into this scholarship fund that funds Santa Ana kids going to Santa Ana College and beyond. And so it was all part of the Education First initiative. And again, it was Rudy Castorita. I forget the name of the chancellor. This is before Eddie... Hernandez. This is the prior chancellor to that, and then it was Rudy and Mayor Dan Young. I think it was under. So in any case, I from what I recall, I remember again whether it's urban legend or actual that the Chestnut facility, the school district offices, and I thought there were a number of other.
There probably might be. I mean, if I had to guess, maybe King Elementary, the newer schools. If you start around Bristol. Right. That's my guess. So but I think research needs to be done.
Yeah, if there was a way to research that, Godinez obviously, so it's some of those investments, commitment on the part of the city that kind of seem to be kind of.
I wonder if Heroes Elementary School. Maybe, I don't know.
You mean like
because that's a fairly new. I would look at the newer schools.
Yeah. You're saying that like an inventory then?
Yeah.
We should
highlight,
get that.
This is,
to know where we're at.
We're not, right. We're not, just to kind of document and remember
and just some history. Monroe Joint Use Site, there, I don't know if you know, that used to be the city yard that we used to have before.
Oh, that's right.
So that was reconfigured.
Okay.
For the park and the joint use and the school.
Right. So that's, so those types of, so I don't know, how we'd be able to track that information down, but to the degree that we could, even a few, to add to this, so that there could be some document, it could be, historically, recorded. And I think that needs to be brought into the conversation with the school district and acknowledged. So that's my only comment.
I agree with the council member here that maybe we could get some kind of inventory. For the meeting, so with the school district, do we have a long list on our end?
Yeah. First of all, this partnership report is going to be on the agenda. You're getting a preview of it. I believe that we should get an update from the school district on Roosevelt Walker. I think the grand opening is tentatively scheduled for June 25th, but I think, we just a brief reminder that the grand opening is coming and all that, because that's an $8 million project. And then Cheryl is scheduled to present to both the school district and the city again as the youth services supervisor. And then I think you mentioned master joint use. I think you didn't. You just mention master joint use as a separate item. Whatever is the pleasure of the committee, but of course the school district will have its agenda items as well.
Right. Yeah, and I didn't want to make it too long because it can run pretty long into the evening. So
and this will be at the school district site because it's their turn.
Very productive what we're asking on our end.
Yeah.
That we get some clarification on their side and everyone's on the same sheet of music.
And it'll be reviewed. I'll bring, when we have a draft, I'll bring it to Raul to review at EMT. There might be other issues, other departments, whatever.
One of the things that we'd like to at least bring up is the crossing guards program. It's about 900,000 and change that we're paying for. They recently just asked our city engineer to do new warrant studies of which intersections near schools need a crossing guard. We think that, I think right now we have 25 intersections that meet the need of a crossing guard, but we only fund 20 because we're already at close to $1 million. One of the things the city engineer was telling me is that if he does another warrant study, it could grow to 30 in terms of the need, or eligible at least, They rank them, of course, by some kind of numerical. So we would only be able to do 20. That's what we're doing right now. But even then, that's expensive. So I'd like to bring that up.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I remember it being a topic discussion before, and also just we want our kids to be safe on their way to school. The question is who really should be ensuring that kids are that safety on the way to school. Is it the city's role or is it the district role?
Right.
So I don't know. We want to necessarily go there completely, but I remember there beginning some preliminary conversations around that before. So right now we absorb all of that, right? The crossing guard cost. Okay.
Right. So that's one. Another one would be just an update on homelessness. They've shown a big interest in being updated, so we can provide an update on where we are with that.
Good idea.
And then the water tower, I'm supposed to meet with the superintendent tomorrow or the day after, so we'll see if that's an eligible item that we bring, or we just keep it on a separate track.
That's one that I'd be curious about, and frankly, that's one of the reasons one prompted my interest in identifying some of this inventory, as Councilman Villegas has mentioned, of properties or times when the city has granted real estate to the district. And again, I don't think it's just urban legend. Who knows? After doing a little bit of research, you might find that's the case. I mean, clearly there's at least the one recent instance where we know that that's not the case, which is Godinez. But I just get a little frustrates me a bit when they're talking about market, trying to receive market dollar for that parcel of land that they really don't have much use for, but yet they're asking for a number of other things from the city, and so I just would hope that they would look at at trying to at parity and trying to truly be partners, and when it comes to the water tower, I think that's an opportunity where they would be for them to be able to say, hey, we've seen where the city's been generous in the past, and we should think of that, consider that when it comes to the water tower. I'd be very, I don't know that I would be supportive at all of purchasing that land when, again, there've been a number of incidences where we have, where we've gifted land for the benefit of the district. So I would be interested in this, essentially, to be able to have that item come up, and in the context of some of this conversation that we were talking about, some of the research that we discussed.
It looks like I have a good reason to reach out to Mr. Dave Ream and maybe invite him to lunch. Because when I was here, he did tell me with a lot of pride that we were in education for a city because we had built 14 or 15 schools in 14 or 15 years. And, he felt like that was as much a city accomplishment as it was a school district accomplishment, because we had been a partner in that. He was very proud of that. Yeah. So I think this is a good time for me to reach out to him. Yeah, that'd be great. See what I can get.
It's also probably good to bring up in the meeting as a reminder to everyone at the meeting.
Agreed.
Is there anything else from staff?
No.
Okay, not seeing anything else. Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.